Do, do. Boom. Can you guys hear me now? All right. And we are live, ladies and gentlemen. There goes to show the type of things we've been dealing with this week. It has been a whole week of just madness so far. So yeah, no audio. I just caught that. But we should be good. You guys can hear me now, right? Okay, perfect. So this is the type of week that I have been dealing with. Maybe even 2 weeks. I don't know. It's been a hectic time for your boy over here. So, you know, I appreciate anybody who's in the streams. We're gonna get into the alien biospheres episode 14. This is gonna be a fun one because we're gonna be learning apparently about extinctions. Uh, Now, I don't know which species are going to be gone, but before we get into that, I do want to say off rip, the species that I do not want to see disappear. Let's see. What are they like? The brachiosaurs, the ones with the big like trunks and stuff. They're kind of like the elephants with all the ones that are furry and they have the some of them have like the colorful stuff, the colorful fur on top. Um, I don't really want them to go. I kind of like them. Some of the smaller spider creatures, I hope some of them are able to survive. I do enjoy them. The one that was kind of like yellowish and black, I thought he looked cool. I want him to survive. Some of the plants, I do hope some of the like underwater species are able to survive, but I do hope some of the plant life is able to survive because even though me and the plant life started off on bad terms with their being weird and everything, the plants being super weird looking because of their trunks having that glossiness to them and everything. Um, I hope some of them survive. I've grown accustomed to them, so yeah. Ah, my gosh, my eyes are still hurting, and then the lights here. So now we're gonna get into this, ladies and gentlemen. How's everybody doing, by the way? I hope everybody had a good day today. I hope everybody's having a good weekend so far. Uh, I think my week is starting to get better. So hopefully this will be the thing that really sets it to the next level. Let's give this a like already. We're already subscribed. And we're brought to you by Campfire, ladies and gentlemen. Yay! Now, Campfire is great, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm going to tell you why because you guys know how much I like promos and stuff here. So, Campfire, you should get Campfire on the basis of if you just want to be able to create things and have a whole storyboard and all the resources available already set up. Like you preset that up and then you just get to fully enjoy the story. I have friends that love to play D&D and this is why I like to bring this up because I've seen D&D be played before, ladies and gentlemen. It's new to me, but I've seen it be played. And something like this would help everyone. You could pre-write the entire story. If you're the dungeon master, if you are a dungeon master in any campaign, I promise you, get Campfire. I don't care. I know how much you guys love D&D. I know how much you guys care about it. I am not the biggest D&D guy personally, but I've seen it be played. So I know this would be a great resource for them. If you are a DM, you need to have this. And also if you're a story writer, I've known people who write things and writing is incredible and they have all these options for you. Like, did you see the maps you can do on this? Like, the resources you can add to this? Look at this. That could be used. That's the perfect map for D&D. I'm not going to lie. Like we all can agree to this, right? This is all good stuff here. So, oh gosh, no. Wait, hold on. Can we not hear the audio from the actual show? Hey, what's going on? How's everybody doing? You made it. Yes, you did. You made it. Congratulations. And we're going to make sure we get the audio from this as well. Make sure we can hear both streams. Okay. 1 second here. We're just doing the promo. But we, for some reason, don't have the audio from the video. So let me go ahead and do this. And then we're going to get that back. And then we're just going to test it out. One second here. We're going to get the audio.
Creation to its
No. One second here, guys. We just got to make sure to get the right audio for this. Nothing still. Okay. Okay, let me fix this here. A small bit of audio came in for a brief moment, just say. All right, did we get it?
For hundreds of millions of years, the chemophytes, anthostomes, and polypods have held dominion over the biosphere, proliferating into millions of species and adapting to every environment across the globe.
Did we get it, guys? Did we get it? No. We got it? We got it. We got it, guys. Oh my god. Oh my god, guys, what you just saw there live in person, and I'm glad my face wasn't showing for that, but you guys just saw live tech support. Actual real life tech support was happening there. And then I have to take my work home with me. This is a fun day so far. let's keep it going, guys. This is the energy that we needed this stream to start off with, apparently.
Globe. But now, after such a long era of success...
Let's just make sure we're starting it from here.
For hundreds of millions of years, the chemophytes, anthostomes, and polypods have held dominion over the biosphere, proliferating into millions of species and adapting to every environment across the globe. But now, after such a long era of success, a disaster is looming on the horizon that will change the face of life on this planet forever.
Okay.
To begin with, extinction is a natural and indeed essential component of evolution. The fundamental premise of natural selection is that individuals with more adaptive traits will survive and pass those traits on to the next generation, while those that are less well adapted will die out and their deleterious traits along with them.
Okay.
This pressure to stay ahead of extinction drives species to constantly innovate and diversify, and results in the extraordinary variety of forms we see across the biosphere. Amid the constantly changing conditions of the natural world, there's plenty of opportunity for species to lose out in the struggle to survive, and throughout the history of life there will always be a background rate of extinction, which is usually balanced out by a more or less equal rate of speciation.
Okay.
But occasionally, the extinction rate rises to the point of exceeding the speciation rate, resulting in what's known as a mass...
Why is this extinction graph so high, though? This is like... My one thing is, I'm not expecting all of... I'll tell you guys right now. I do not expect all of the species on this planet to die. I'm not... The fact that there is an episode 15 makes me believe reasonably that some things are going to survive on this, whether they be plants, you know, some type of animal species, either on land or underwater, or some type of insect, maybe. I know it's a mass extinction. I get that part. I'm just saying, I do still expect the planet to still be alive, and then something's deep underwater may still be alive after this. That's what I'm saying. But no spoilers in the chat or anything.
Extinction, or more generally, an extinction event. Under the most inclusive definition, there have been dozens of extinction events throughout the history of life on Earth, as will be the case on our alien planet as well. For the sake of simplicity and clarity, this series has only focused on the major clades and the broad-scale patterns of their diversification. Realistically, there will have been countless other clades that have come and gone alongside them, and between every branch of the Tree of Life will be innumerable offshoots that leave behind no descendants. So far, the planet has been through several minor extinction events, like the collapse of the rainforests and the spread of the Brachyphyte steppe, the onset and ending of the Ice Age, and likely many other events that we haven't detailed. But once every 100 million years or so, an extinction event occurs that reshapes the entire biosphere beyond recognition. The most intense mass extinctions in the history of Earth are known as the Big Five, the most famous of which being the End Cretaceous or KPG extinction that wiped out the non-avian dinosaurs.
Hey, I'm not gonna lie. Okay, this is gonna sound so crazy, and I know we're talking about something important here, but this is almost my name here. We can all agree to this, right? The second one. So how are they gonna pronounce it here? Because I would say the Divanavian extinction. They may say the divination. I don't know how to pronounce things properly, so that's going to be my first mistake there. But it does say divine there, and I will go ahead and acknowledge that. Was I part of this? Was I there for the second mass extinction on Earth? I won't spoil that for you guys. I wasn't the biggest mass extinction in Earth's history, but the impact of being there, it's like the impact you make is the most important thing. You want to be somebody who lasts throughout the generations. This is me. This would be me here. I would represent that, like one of the big five. Like 500 million years from now, they're gonna look at YouTube and be like, "Wow, he did it. He was one of the 5 YouTubers that caused the mass extinction of YouTube." I will be one of the 5 somehow. My name will be out there, ladies and gentlemen.
Along with many other groups. But the most devastating was the End Permian extinction, also called the Great Dying, which killed off more than half of all family-level clades and as much as 90% of all species.
I have heard of this
With the exception of the End Cretaceous extinction, which is known to have been the result of a meteor impact, the exact causes behind these extinctions are still under study, but virtually all of them are associated with periods of increased volcanism that led to huge disruptions in climate. But no matter the trigger, the ultimate cause of all mass extinctions can be boiled down to sudden, inescapable worldwide change. Most climate shifts take place gradually over many millions of years, during which time beneficial mutations can accumulate to allow species to adapt to the changing conditions. But mass extinctions typically occur on the order of thousands of years, which simply isn't enough time for evolution to keep up, and so species just have to make do with what they've got.
Okay, so shout outs to this guy over here, though, right? Like, we all can agree that this guy's kind of like on top right now, like not like living the life, but like, it was a struggle getting there. Shout outs to this going this direction here.
The first stage of the mass extinction on our alien planet will be set in motion by the movement of the continents. Ever since the eastern and western continents began heading back towards each other, they've also been steadily drifting southward, so that as they collide, they'll intrude into the Antarctic Circle, providing more land area for glaciers to form. On top of this, the collision will push up new mountain ranges and increase volcanic activity, which will release sulfurous gases and other particulates into the atmosphere to form
Hey, I
thick...
love this artwork here. This is actually really nice. It's so visual. I love how visual this is. Like, it makes me feel like I feel like I'm on this mountain, this cliff right here. I feel like I have that tree in my distance. And then I'm looking like, oh wow, there's poop coming out of me because I'm so scared.
Clouds that increase the planet's albedo, reflecting more and more solar radiation and resulting in global cooling, plunging the world into a new ice age even more intense than the last one. Many of the animals that have thrived in the hothouse period of the last 50 million years may struggle to survive, but before anything has the chance to adapt to this colder world, the situation will rapidly reverse. Volcanoes also produce an enormous amount of carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases, which, as the eruptions continue over the course of several 100,000 years, will cause global warming by which the planet's average temperature will rise to unprecedented levels. On Earth, the Great Dying saw average global temperatures increase by up to 10 degrees Celsius, brought on by a series of massive eruptions that caused a 6-fold increase in atmospheric carbon dioxide.
You know what? I'm glad I got this far into the video too, Anthrax, or into the series as well. I will say the first few episodes, I know that obviously I do enjoy these more, but the first few episodes were also very compelling in their own right. I will say that. You know, they it's not like it's the exact same, like you said. You know, this was a lot more compelling, but I don't know. They all, I think they're all so intriguing in their own different ways. I just like this kind of stuff. I don't know, something about it. This is entertaining stuff here.
Over a period of about 10,000 years. Although it's worth noting that this isn't even close to the rate at which humans are currently putting CO2 into the atmosphere.
Oh, wow.
This sudden
Darn humans, what are we doing, guys? Guys, has anybody seen this graph yet? Have we showed this to like world leaders and stuff? Have we shown? I think that's the problem. I think they haven't seen this. So maybe if we decide to, push this video out to everybody, like, share, and subscribe and comment. I'll make sure to have this part right here. That's what I'm doing right now. I'm leaving this page up right now for any world leaders. If you are a world leader who just so happens to be reading this, guys, did you know how much emissions we're putting out? It's turns out it's pretty bad. It's a lot. If you're the world leader of any of the top 5 countries out there, hey, may want to pause right now. Call your guys and be like, yo, emission guys, we're doing a little too much here. Let's slow it down a little bit, and then bam. So guys, I may have just ended the Pope blessed an ice cube. Wait, did he bless Ice Cube the actor or an actual Ice Cube? Because those have 2 completely different consequences behind them. Shout outs to Ice Cube though. Shout outs to the Pope. He's from New York, so hopefully he's he understands the language. The Pope, if you're watching, hey Pope, I got a lot of people from New York around in my on my channel who subscribe. You might be one of them. I don't know. But if you're watching, look at these emissions, bro. Call your guys. Pray about it. Let's make sure we can get this issue resolved. That's a lot.
Rate at which humans are currently putting CO2 into the atmosphere.
I left it on that page for a while.
This sudden switch from bitter cold to scorching heat will throw the climate into chaos, resulting in wild oscillations in...
Shout outs to Dixie Joe and Co-Eater? Cow Eater? Cow Eater is wild for some reason to me. But I do love how, like, this sun, I don't know, the way this, like, fades in and out, like, this is really good artwork. And this is really detailed here. I really love this one as well. I just wanted to shout out the artist really quick. But the name Cow Eater, for some reason, I thought Dixie Joe was going to make me giggle. when I actually read Cow Eater out loud, I actually was like, what am I actually reading right now?
Weather
This is
patterns
hilarious.
all across the planet. Worse still, such large-scale eruptions will cause flood basalt events, in which enormous tracts of the landscape are ravaged by lava flows. The Great Dying saw flood basalts cover an area of over 7 million square kilometers,
Jeez.
resulting in the formation of the Siberian Traps. All of these factors will bring about destruction on a scale the planet has never seen, presenting a threat to the entire biosphere that only the hardiest of species will have a chance of surviving. In general, plants are more resistant to mass extinctions than animals are.
Okay.
Many extinction events in the history of Earth haven't significantly affected plant diversity, so the majority of chemophyte clades may survive in some shape or form.
You know what?
However, while
I did mention this earlier in the stream. I don't know if we were having audio issues then. Hopefully you were able to hear me. I said, me and these plants had I wasn't a big fan of them at the beginning. Mostly because they are weird. Like, we can all acknowledge that I'm correct in that them being weird. Even though they're cool, I appreciated them later, but I came to appreciate them a lot more. It's their waxy skin and everything, but again, I know he said, however, I'm just saying, I threw it out there at the beginning that I think some of these guys should stay alive, should survive this. So, I'm not every plant will survive, I know, but I'm just saying, shout outs to the plants who do survive.
Chemophyte clades may survive in some shape or form.
We're gonna.
However, while plant diversity won't be
nice.
severely affected, plant biomass will be hugely reduced, and the distribution of biomes and habitats will change dramatically.
It's maybe a couple of guys right here, a little bit, maybe. This is probably dead plant matter, but maybe, possibly some plants.
The shift in climate will lead to widespread drought, and the ash and aerosols in the atmosphere will block out the sun for months at a time, causing forests all across the planet to die back. The intense heat will ignite the withered remnants of these forests and spark huge wildfires, releasing...
I'm gonna be honest, this artwork is so freaking incredible, but this is very messed up for the plants right now. Like, I know I spoke too soon, but this is crazy for the plant life right now. This is actually insane.
Yet more carbon dioxide. Though many plant clades may be diverse enough to make it through.
They even got it pixelated. Oh my god. They're just really...
Some won't be able to cope with such huge changes to their habitat. The most significant factor affecting the likelihood of a species extinction is its degree of specialization, as the narrower the range of conditions the species is adapted for, the more sensitive it will be to any changes in those conditions.
True.
In this way, the inhabitants of the rainforests will be especially vulnerable, as the rainforest's sheer density of niches and its...
They're all very dependent on, the plant life in the rainforest, the trees, the big ones.
Unchanging, accommodating climate engender specialization by their very nature. As the largest of all chemophytes, the altophytes are only able to achieve their enormous height thanks to the high levels of solar radiation and the perpetual rainfall of the tropics. But as weather patterns across the planet are disrupted, the constant precipitation that fuels the growth of the rainforests will cease, and without sufficient sunlight or water, the altophytes will be forced into extinction. These enormous trees serve as the foundation of the entire rainforest biome, and once they disappear, the countless species that depend on them will be in dire trouble.
Oh no!
Many of the smaller rainforest plants are adapted for life in the darkness of the forest floor, and don't require as much water or nutrients to grow. But many of them will still be too specialized to tolerate such an...
I'm about to say, some of them get their nutrients directly from the bigger trees. Oh gosh.
Extreme environmental upheaval. In particular, carnivorous plants are found almost exclusively in very wet habitats, as carnivory in plants is most often an adaptation to waterlogged, nutrient-poor soil. So as the tropics become more arid, the carnivorous harpactophytes won't have any suitable areas to grow.
And then there's whole species that kind of work off of these guys.
So will be swiftly driven to extinction. For ground plants like the conophytes, the drier climate will not only make it harder for them to grow, but it will also affect the populations of scavengers and detritivores that they rely on for their deceptive pollination, inhibiting their reproduction as the jungle disappears, meaning they too will vanish from the forest floor. The situation will be equally bad for epiphytes, which rely on the enormous trees around them to lend them the support they need to gain access to light. Though the reptophytes, chromatophytes, and aphyllophytes may be widespread enough to survive as a whole, the rainforest species will be hit especially hard, as most of them have specialized to the point where they can't survive at ground level at all. With the decline of these plants, the intricate relationships they've evolved with the rainforest animals will be severed, leading to their demise as well. Many of the rainforest picopterans are only able to feed on a single species of chromatophyte, and in turn serve as their only means of pollination. So as one clade declines...
You know what? I will be honest, I forgot about these guys in that relationship they have where they specialize in eating one specific plant. This is actually ridiculous. Why would you... I've probably said it before, but like specializing in one specific plant is not the best idea. You know? And then what happens when that plant disappears? Now you're gone, you know?
The other will respond in kind, and although some particularly small and adaptable species might manage to survive elsewhere, the vast majority of picopteran diversity will be lost.
Alright, bye-bye.
Similarly, the phylloferans have evolved to mimic the leaves of specific species of chromatophytes, and to feed on the individual species of nectarovores that the chromatophyte attracts.
What? But I forgot about this guy. This guy looked kind of cool. He had a whole setup where he just looked like this other thing, like looked like a leaf. And somebody wouldn't get it, it just comes back and attacks it. This is cool. Okay, I think I remember this now. I think I do remember this guy, actually. Okay, I think I remember this guy now. But this is actually really cool. Dang. All right, well, you had a good life, bro. How long were they living? Like a couple of thousand years, you would say? These guys got to live a couple of thousand years. Yeah, evolution doesn't look ahead, you know? But, dang, they was living a good life, just sitting back, relaxing, trapping people with the little fake leaf going on here. It worked.
On the individual species of nectarovores that the chromatophyte attracts. But depending on a suitable abundance of both of these clades makes their niches inherently precarious, meaning it will be virtually impossible for them to survive once the rainforest ecosystems collapse. Damn. But the rainforest animals depend on the plants around them for more than just food. Many arboreal species are so highly adapted for life in the canopy that they're completely incapable of coming down to ground level.
Oh my god!
Animals like the suspensorial harpactopods and the canopy-dwelling...
Bro, y'all don't even come down to are like sloths? Wait, I'm trying to think. Can sloths walk normally? Like sloths on our planet, can they like walk normally? I think I've only seen them climb. I don't think I've seen a sloth just walking around before. Do they still walk normally? Like if there was a big rainforest or something, or like forest fire, like would sloths survive that? Let me know.
Aspidonts require a high density of vegetation for their locomotion and hunting strategies to be effective. And the tannibrachids are so specialized for brachiation that their legs have lost the ability to support their weight and have become virtually vestigial. With the death of the altophytes, obligately arboreal animals like these will be some of the first to die out. The dolichostracans are also predominantly arboreal, so the majority of them will die out as well, save for those few species that can locomote effectively at ground level. In particular, the phylactocanthids are so arboreal that they depend on the hoplopods to ferry them to new feeding areas, but as the groves of trees they thrive in become increasingly rare, their feeding and dispersal will become much more difficult, until they too ultimately succumb. And without their phylactocanthid symbiotes, the hoplopods will be robbed of their means of defense, and with food becoming scarcer all the time, they too will eventually disappear. Not long after the specialists are wiped out, the shortage of food will begin to affect other groups. Another factor strongly correlated with extinction risk is body size, as larger animals tend to require a greater amount of resources, which become much rarer during mass extinctions.
Guys, I want to make it be known really quickly. It looks like I'm crying, but I actually just had to put eye drops in for issues I've been having with my eyes recently, and then I'm looking at the lights. So I'm not like crying because all the species are dying. It is very coincidental though, and it looks like I care a lot. So that might be a plus. Like, comment, subscribe, send super chats, donations, all that fun stuff. It is just a coincidence.
Plus, large-bodied clades tend to have lower species richness and smaller populations, as well as longer growth periods and slower reproduction, making it harder for them to stay ahead of rising mortality rates. Once the climate begins shifting, it won't be long before megafauna start dying out. Even before the mass extinction, the titanopods haven't been faring well. The majority of species outside the tropics were killed off by the last ice age, and the surviving species have been losing out in competition with the
Dang, this guy is crazy up here. I know he's about to go out, but this guy, the gray one, this looks insane. I think I've seen this exact photo before, but this looks absolutely insane.
For what few species remain after the interchange, the mass extinction will be the final nail in the coffin. But their allobrachid competitors won't fare much better. The phylacrobrachids and teleobrachids have evolved sizes comparable to the titanopods, making their chances of survival similarly remote. Even the smaller allobrachids won't be safe. In what's sometimes called the Lilliput effect, mass extinctions often cause a worldwide reduction in body size across virtually all animal clades, which, in mass extinctions on the scale of the Big Five, means that any animal larger than about 10 to 15 kilograms is liable to be wiped out. As the lush plains are replaced by barren wastelands, the herds of basal neo...
This was like the one species I actually didn't want to die. I did say that at the beginning. I was like, this is probably the one species I don't want to die. Especially these guys down here to the bottom left. The crested arms, like, these guys are cool. And these guys are cool.
Brachids, ceratobrachids, corythobrachids, and any other remaining thylacopods will disappear one by one. Their camptopod relatives will follow the same fate, having already taken a substantial hit to their diversity when the allobrachids crossed into the east, and now finally being finished off once and for all. The situation will be no better for older varieties of herbivores. Most of the prenobrachids and the basal megalobrachids were outcompeted by other megafaunal clades long ago, and any species that are still around will be doomed.
So wait, all the spider creatures.
The disappearance of large...
Okay, I think the little spider creatures may survive. Okay. No large-sized creatures.
Prey will propagate through the food chain and take its toll on the predators. The large onocodonts have been the most successful clade of apex predators since the invasion of land, but as their hunting grounds are depleted, their supremacy will at last be brought to an end.
RIP to all of these guys. They all looked super cool, and I think they all had very good lives, or they spec'd into the right things, you know? I love the color patterns. You know, obviously you guys grew big. Who knew that wasn't going to be the meta in a couple of thousand years, you know? Be honest. I'll be honest. I didn't know it was going to turn out the way evolution doesn't think ahead, like they all say, but, you know, evolution did you guys lucked up in evolution. So RIP to you guys, but you know, you had a good life.
Although the terrestrial Deinognathans have more
get out of here
generalist diets than the onocodonts, they'll still struggle to find enough food to maintain their large size, and even the smaller opportunistic groups like the Maliognathans and Lestignathans won't be able to eke out a living in the desolated remains of their former habitats.
RIP.
The semi-aquatic Deinognathans will also begin to disappear as freshwater habitats dry out in the searing heat. The macropredatory Trachognathans won't be able to survive without an abundance of big game, and most of the freshwater Dolichognathans will also perish as their habitat diminishes. Even flying species won't be able to escape the destruction. Although birds as a whole survived the end Cretaceous extinction, representing the only clade of dinosaurs to make it to the present day, many of the most successful groups of birds during the Cretaceous didn't survive the meteor impact. And the
were these guys just actually still around as themselves, or were they just like a different bird altogether back then? Does anybody know the history of this bird here? is this like a this looks like a just like a seagull or a pigeon or something? Not like a seagull, but like it looks like a common bird. Like if I think of the word bird, this is what I would think of somewhere here. Was he just like the lamest bird? Were there like thousands of, like hundreds of thousands more birds back in the day? Or was it? It's complicated. I figured it seems complicated.
Dinosaurs were wiped out altogether. The Theropterans and other large Pleropterans are too big and specialized to survive, while the Magnopterans have already been on the decline from competition from the Pleropterans for tens of millions of years, so they won't have the necessary diversity to persist, and the Sphenopteran's speed and pursuit hunting adaptations will be of no use in the absence of prey. But the devastation won't be confined to the mainland. As we've touched on in previous episodes, islands are much more vulnerable to extinction than continents, as they can't support the same level of resources and diversity as larger landmasses. This same effect can be seen in habitat fragmentation, in which large areas of landscape are subdivided into patches between which dispersal is inhibited, which makes each individual fragment more vulnerable to biodiversity loss.
Oh wow.
Most of the islands in the Pyrenesian archipelago are only
I feel like I've never thought about this for real. Like, making roads and stuff really messes up the environment of like the species that live there. Who knew? Except people who already knew this like for a very long time. Like the people who think about this, are they really thinking about this that well? Or are they just like, roads have already been built. Who cares what we do now when we build more? Or do they have to think about this when they're building, like, I'm sure they think about this when they're building new stuff, right? Like anytime some new person, like construction crew, like they have a guy who has to think about all this stuff. Is this like a thing you guys can tell me yes to? Yeah, it does educate folks, but I just hope that there's like a guy who thinks about all this stuff before they just plan out new things nowadays. I hope that's some guy's job.
Most of the islands in the Pyrenesian archipelago are only a few tens of kilometers across, which constrains the population sizes of their native species and makes them more sensitive to environmental disturbance. So the majority of Pyrenesian fauna will die out shortly after the climate begins changing. And if that weren't enough to seal their fate, the volcanic hotspot that fuels the formation of the archipelago won't remain active forever, and as the islands drift over it, they'll gradually be eroded by wave action until they crumble into the sea, and all of Pyrenesia's unique indigenous clades will disappear with them. The island of Crescentia will suffer an even worse fate, as it will have the misfortune of being right at the center of the continental convergence, first freezing over as it nears the South Pole and the cooling period begins, then scourged by tides of lava once the eruptions ensue.
Oh, God.
What few notiforms and xenodonts survived the Ice Age and the arrival of the Eriotheres will be promptly snuffed out, and even the Eriotheres themselves won't be able to survive as the island is made completely uninhabitable by the ongoing volcanism. The mass extinction will present an entirely different range of threats to oceanic ecosystems. As the ash clouds darken the sky, the phytoplankton that form the basis of the marine food webs will have a harder time photosynthesizing, depriving the swarms of tachypods, anthostome larvae, and other zooplankton of their food source. And the once
Damn. These guys were like OGs, if you think about it. Like, these guys were here since, like, what? Episode 2 or 3 or something? I think, like, 2 or something like that. So to see them go is kind of, like, crazy.
Tachypods, anthostome larvae, and other zooplankton of their food source. And the once prolific swarms of tiny organisms will vanish from the surface waters. Additionally, the rising levels of CO2 will react with seawater to form carbonic acid, increasing the pH of the oceans and making it harder for species with mineralized exoskeletons to form their shells. This ocean acidification was a major factor that led to the marine invertebrates suffering the heaviest losses during the Great Dying.
Why did I think marine animals survived better during the apocalypse? Or not apocalypse, but during mass extinctions. I don't know. Is it just the land creature in me that thinks that being underwater is just naturally safer? I feel like in my mind, and I understand, like, uh, you know, a lot of most of the animals from the Cambrian, all the stuff from the Cambrian era, like they're all gone, but it felt like they died and not like a mass thing, but I guess it was a mass thing. So I guess that's me. That's the me thing, guys. I'm realizing that as I speak now. This is a thing where I thought sea creatures get hit. Like I thought land creatures get hit harder, but apparently sea creatures get hit pretty freaking hard. Sea animals get hit harder because parts of the ocean turn to acid. That's the part that I didn't consider in my mind. I didn't realize that the ocean would turn into acid. But if the land is turning into freaking a volcanic, mass, yeah, why wouldn't the ocean turn into acid?
Many clades losing over 90% of their diversity. Anthropogenic climate change is beginning to cause similar effects, such as coral bleaching and the reduction of calcification of many oceanic organisms. Most of the marine anthostomes have calcareous shells, and the reefs formed by the sessile species in coastal waters are some of the richest of all marine habitats, and their death will cause a catastrophic decrease in ocean productivity and cause entire food webs to collapse. On top of this, the changing climate will drastically alter the ocean currents, causing huge disturbances in the distribution of oxygen and nutrients. This is made worse by the fact that as water becomes warmer, its levels of dissolved oxygen decrease, which, along with the changes in ocean chemistry and productivity, will result in an anoxic event, turning large expanses of the seas into dead zones, areas where oxygen levels are too low for any marine animals to survive.
Oh, wow.
Just as on land.
Wait, hold on. Is this like a real thing we're going through right now in life? It feels like he's not talking about the other planet anymore. This feels like he's talking about Earth at this point. Is this us? Is this like something that's going to be happening to Earth soon? Is that what's happening right now? Can sea animals not live like on the coast of Florida? What? This is us? We are doing this? Guys, why are we not stopping this yet? How have we not stopped this stuff yet? What is going on here? Like, no, like, okay, I don't like to curse and stuff on the channel, but no bullshit. What the fuck are we doing right now about this? Like, are we actually, like, helping? Because we kind of need animals and, like, sea creatures and stuff. We're trying to? Have people seen this yet? Has this video gotten popular enough for, like, people important to see this? This seems like they spit, like, 2 crazy big facts about the Earth, like, in the last, like, 18 minutes, okay? Like, they already mentioned the carbon, how much we're polluting, those emissions. We paused it for that, okay? We paused it for the emissions, guys. We're doing a lot of it. Crazy amounts. Have we seen this? Like, if you're a New Yorker and you're like, hey, I want to go fishing, guess what? You probably can't. All the fish are dead in your area. Do you live in Florida and you like fish? Guess what? They're probably dying right now. The Gulf of Mexico, Gulf of no fish. How about that? What is going on here? Oil company doesn't want people to know about this? Guys, we need to know about that. This is very important stuff. What is... Like, if you think this is crazy, just wait until life rebounds. Your mind will be blown again. Will my mind be blown when it... I hope this... Can life rebound in real life? What does that mean? Is that a good thing? Like, is it a good thing for us and people in Japan to be able to get fish? Like, people in Nordic areas to get fish? Y'all love fish in Japan and Nordic areas. Why are y'all gotta be doing extra about this, right? Like, they gotta be doing a little bit extra because they love the stuff. Diversity will be huge. Okay.
Turning large expanses of the seas into dead zones, areas where oxygen levels are too low for any marine animals to survive. Just as on land, the biggest and most specialized marine species will be the most vulnerable. The largest animals in the sea, and indeed anywhere on the whole planet, are the thalattotheres, including the filter-feeding isopterygians and the predatory anisopterygians, many of which exceed 10 meters in length. At such a huge size, even the slightest change in the distribution of resources presents a serious risk, making their extinction inevitable. Even the smaller semi-aquatic animals like the actothias and diptopterids don't have comparable levels of diversity to fully marine groups, and so won't be widespread enough to outpace their rising death toll. Many fully marine clades like the acanthopods, colepods, and tentaclostomes will also take heavy losses. Particularly, large filter feeders like the tylopods depend on high concentrations of plankton and oxygen, and apex predators like the temnopods can't survive without sufficient quantities of large
I enjoy both of these creatures.
Prey. But the marine clades won't be the only ones affected by the change in ocean chemistry. At the bottom of the sea are large deposits of methane clathrate, a form of ice consisting of bubbles of methane held within a lattice of water molecules. These clathrates are only stable under high pressures and low temperatures, so as the sea warms up, the clathrates will dissolve and release the methane from the ocean depths into the atmosphere, a mechanism known as the clathrate gun. Methane is a far more potent greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide, this will result in an even sharper rise in global temperatures. Is this also happening
on Earth in real life too? This is gonna be like, is this video gonna turn me into like a pro, like whatever they call that? Like, I am like very much trying to keep Earth alive right now for some reason, even though we're not even talking about Earth except the parts where we are, which are like the parts where I'm like, whoa, hold on, I live there. What's going on here? Like, what is he talking about? Things are cool when he's talking about the other planet. It starts to worry me when all the things he's talking about with the other planet are like in effect on our planet right now. That's the part that gets me a little bit like, what are we doing here? Can we make some changes? Because we're not talking about like a fictional place anymore. Now we're talking about like a real, yeah, I'm going to go outside and hug a real tree now because of this. Like, what's going on here? Like, was this whole thing just for me to like be like, oh yeah, let's get him super hyped up, and then it turns out at the end he actually wants to stop global warming? Is that I didn't know this was all my videos from now on are going to be somehow, I'm going to relate it back to make sure we do something about this, because I didn't know this was happening.
And create apparently a feedback loop by which they climb higher and higher. For thousands of years, the entire planet will be smothered by the oppressive heat and clouds of ash, as lava flows lay waste to vast swathes of landscape, and once fertile habitats are reduced to baking deserts, and species die out at a higher rate than any other time in the planet's history. It will be millions of years before conditions become tolerable again, but even after the eruptions end and the planet begins to heal, some of the survivors may later succumb to extinction debt, having lost so much of their former diversity, abundance, or habitat that they'll be unable to recover, and will be doomed to die out at some point after the extinction event itself has ended. Although the basal platodonts are by and large very adaptable animals, many of the older varieties won't be able to deal with the massive change in conditions after the extinction. The copotarsans may be among those that lose out, as they never achieved a notable degree of diversity, nor did they spread much beyond the coastal swamps they first evolved in, making it harder for them to keep up with the constantly shifting climate. The echinostracans' main advantage is their spiked shell that makes them virtually immune to
love these creatures. R.I.P., bro.
Attack. But even if they survive the extinction, their signature adaptation won't be of any use when all the predators are dead, leaving them to be outcompeted by smaller, more adaptable plecostracans that can survive on less food. Over the enormous stretches of time that evolution operates, even clades that were once very successful and widespread may ultimately dwindle and die out. The trilobites were some of the most successful and abundant animals in the history of life on Earth, but after losing the vast majority of their diversity in the late Devonian extinction, they were never able to reclaim their
Devonian, that was me. I'm sorry, guys. I didn't mean to take out this species, but, you know, it is what it is. They were, you know, now I got to make sure to, I came back after taking out this species. I reincarnated as a human so we can stop the next one, guys. I learned my lesson. It wasn't a good idea. I want to make sure to stop the next, you know, extinction. that may happen to Earth, apparently.
Their former success before they were finished off by the Great Dying. And the multituberculates were the most diverse clade of mammals for over 130 million years. But despite surviving the end Cretaceous extinction, they ended up declining and dying out shortly afterward. Even groups like sharks and crocodiles, which have famously been around for hundreds of millions of years and lived through many extinction events, have still undergone significant losses in diversity. Roughly half of all crocodilians died out during the end Cretaceous extinction, and about 70% of all shark species disappeared in an extinction event about 19 million years ago. The basal dromaeopods were some of the first terrestrial predators to evolve, but since then they've been losing out against other predatory clades, and even if they manage to endure the mass extinction, they won't have enough of a competitive advantage to re-establish themselves. The leptopods have been some of the most successful herbivores in the planet's history, but with the death of the dominant groups like the alabrachids and the camptopods, the leptopods will have had their moment in the spotlight. And as new herbivores evolve, most of the remaining species will follow their larger cousins into extinction. At one time, the metaxopods were successful enough to invade the land and give rise to the osteopods despite the competition from the lophostomes. But since then, they haven't been able to compete effectively with their osteopod descendants on land, nor with the acanthopods in the water, and what narrow range of niches they'll have managed to occupy will be compromised by the mass extinction, even to the point of wiping them out completely.
Jeez.
The only animals that stand a chance of surviving are those that are small, generalist, and resilient enough to cope with extremely rapid and drastic changes to their environment. Though there'll be considerable turnover in many marine ecosystems, the tachypods and other constituents of the plankton are so abundant and have such a high fecundity that some tiny fraction of their diversity will survive, persisting in the few patches of sea that retain enough oxygen and nutrients, and rapidly multiplying to refill the empty oceans once conditions become favorable again.
Okay.
The smallest members of the major clades of acanthopods will also survive, as will the colepods and the lithostracan tentaclostomes within the relative shelter of the ocean depths. Being limited by their lack of internal support to only a few kilograms at the most, the majority of the lophostomes will be within the range of body size necessary to avoid extinction. In particular, the malacoforms are so small and diverse that they may make it through virtually unscathed, much like how insects have been largely unaffected by most extinction events in the history of Earth. The xerostracans can make use of their aestivation to sit out periods of intense drought and famine, which they may make use of to become one of the most successful diplostome clades during the extinction event. Though the larger opisthophorans, like the magnopterans and sphenopterans, will be wiped out, many of the letopterans have remained small enough to make it through.
Okay.
Although the reduction of chromatophyte abundance will pose a danger for nectarovores, a tiny percentage of picopterans will be small enough and reproduce quickly enough to survive on the decreased food supply, just as how the lepidopterans survived the end Cretaceous extinction, while most pipiodonts are opportunistic enough to get by on malacoforms, seeds, and other meager scraps of food. As most of the flightless elastospondyls are arboreal, the worldwide deforestation will claim a large chunk of their diversity, but some of the basal species may still be able to find small prey at ground level and within the isolated pockets of woodland that remain. The tropopherans may survive by virtue of their infrared sensing, by which they can find and hunt prey more easily than many other elastospondyls, while the survival of the dinoglossids won't be as contingent on the availability of food as it will be on the abundance of their scandapod host species. Fortunately for them, the scandapods are some of the smallest and most diverse of all platodonts, and while they'll certainly undergo a reduction in their diversity, the clade as a whole will still survive. The pleuropterans were able to achieve sufficient diversity prior to the extinction event such that, although the theropterans and many of the larger, older, and less competitive pleuropterans will be killed off, a handful of platypteran species will be small and successful enough to survive. The amblypods were lucky enough to be adapted to arid habitats before the mass extinction, which will make them the only clade of leptopods to survive, consigning these once prolific...
I ain't gonna lie, I ain't expect them to survive, but they're probably gonna... I assume they're gonna die off afterwards, but who knows?
...herbivores to only a few small species wandering the deserts and scrublands. But of all the polypod clades, the Siniskians will have suffered some of the heaviest casualties.
Jeez.
From the very beginning of their history, they've been specialized for attaining large sizes, developing robust, weight-bearing skeletons and becoming some of the first terrestrial animals to move into megafaunal niches. But in the long run, these very same traits will be their undoing. After the marine forms are wiped out and the terrestrial species are all but annihilated, almost the entire Siniskian lineage will be gone. But sometimes,
R.I.P. to the Siniskians.
Whether a clade lives or dies during a mass extinction comes down to sheer luck. Along the coasts of Septentria, the climate may remain hospitable enough for a few patches of wetland to be preserved, and within their waterways, some scattered populations of the Hybignathans may be fortunate enough to be spared, living on the few diplocerids and other freshwater acanthopods that still dwell on the shrunken remnant.
I feel like these guys all got introduced recently, too. Like, I know this guy got introduced in, like, either the last or the episode before that. I remember that. Larky's River Drive. I remember the name being super cool.
Scattered populations of the Hybignathans may be fortunate enough to be spared, living on the few diplocerids and other freshwater acanthopods that still dwell on the shrunken remnants of the once expansive river systems. And even then, only one genus will survive, clinging on in the Septentrian swamps as the very last of the Siniskians, and a bizarre relic of a bygone era.
This is
just as how the two
Atoskians and a bizarre a shout out to Burpopo. This is incredible.
Relic of a bygone era. Just as how the Tuatara lives on in New Zealand as the only remaining species of the once widespread Rhynchocephalians. But not all of the surviving clades will emerge from the extinction event in such a sorry state. For some clades, the destruction will bring opportunity. Whether they're wiped out by the mass extinction or simply lose out in competition with their more adaptable relatives, the older clades of Eurychirids will be forced into decline, as will the more specialized groups among them like the Apatochirids, who depend on dense populations of their host species to implement their...
Out of these three, will one of them survive? I'm going to take a wild guess and say if anybody's going to survive out of these guys, it's probably going to be this guy right here that burrows. Probably, I don't
parasitism.
know. I think they might all die.
But many of the other acrochirids, along with the Oryctochirids and some of the basal ramphidonts, have a suite of characteristics that will make them some of the most successful animals during the extinction. Their small size means they can survive on very little food, and their diets are broad enough to subsist on whatever they can unearth from the barren soil. Their endothermy lets them maintain constant activity, and makes them less sensitive to fluctuations in climate, and they can avoid the worst of the perilous conditions on the surface within the shelter of their burrows. They have very high reproductive rates, and their extensive brood care and social systems ensure that a high proportion of their young make it to adulthood. With this array of adaptations, these little creatures are poised to not only survive the extinction, but also to act as pioneer species, which in the context of mass extinctions are sometimes called disaster taxa, being some of the first animals to recover and thrive in the post-extinction world.
Hey,
but they
I
won't.
Ain't gonna lie. I feel like this image feels symbolic right here, right? Like, you know, you're just growing, and the world is just tough around you. That feels like symbolism, right?
Be alone. All that will remain of the dromaeopods after the extinction will be the allodonts, most older clades of which will also perish soon afterward in competition with other groups. But if any of them survive, the xenopsids will certainly be among them. With their unique feeding arrangement, these small, tenacious mesocarnivores can feed on anything from rotting meat to plant tubers, and their facultative endothermy lets them tolerate variable climates and slow their metabolism to conserve energy during times of food shortage. Not to mention the increased survival rates afforded by their social behaviors and cooperative breeding, all traits that will let them establish themselves as a dominant clade after the mass extinction.
Let's go.
Even as these surviving groups begin to repopulate, the scars left by the mass extinction will be all too clear. Whereas before the extinction event, there was a more or less seamless spectrum of forms across...
Guys, let's do one RIP for all the creatures that we lost. You know, this is a lot. this is a lot of species, but we got some survivors. So, shout outs to all these guys. You guys had decent to good lives. Most of you, especially in this series, I know we started another, like the Opano series recently, with shout outs to Project Opano. Those guys are amazing over there. Shout outs to them once again. Make sure you subscribe to them. These guys seem to have lived slightly better, existences than some of the other creatures. A lot of these guys were food, but a lot of them got to hunt, and especially in this clad here, a lot of these guys had decent lives in this clad. I ain't gonna lie. It wasn't like they're the plants who literally the plants literally just get eaten, and then they try to survive, and then they try to make fruits and stuff, spread the seeds, all the stuff, and then these guys just come around and eat them, and then they eat each other, and then all they do is eat stuff. So, but they had good lives for the most part. Nobody was like living for like 24 hours and then dying, and then getting like, chewed up or nothing. They all seem to have been, this was more of an attack species here. So everything from this, creed and clade, however you say it, they all, it was a good life for them.
The Tree of Life. In the aftermath, so many branches will have been removed that the survivors will appear to be grouped into distinct clusters that share key traits in common. This effect can be seen on Earth in the fact that clades have historically been described in terms of classes, such as how vertebrates have been traditionally sorted into mammals, birds, reptiles, amphibians, and fish. However, these groups only appear distinct from each other because the intermediate forms have gone extinct, and if we take these into account, it becomes much more difficult to distinguish where one group ends and another begins.
That's crazy. This is crazy. Could you guys imagine? Yeah, a lot of the guys are dead. Could you guys imagine, just for a quick moment, going back in time, having let's say you guys have some type of suit on that makes you can't be hurt, nothing can happen to you. You're just able to see all these species. Is that not like, would that be like one of the coolest things of all time? Is being like, oh yeah, I know the species that I'd actually seen the evolution that go from tiger all the way back to lizard. It's crazy. They can also go into bird. It's insane. It depends on what that species was going through at the time. Insane work. It's like you'd see so many creatures just going back in time. If you could just go back in time and just see what was just happening, you wouldn't even need to step outside the ship. You would just want to go back in time, just be on the ship that you're in, and then just look around. Just look around for like a day. No stepping foot on anything. It would literally change the way you think about life, I think. Like, I think you would just look at everything differently. Like, wow, these guys, their existence, everything, just what are they doing right now? They're just, living, and then bam, something crazy comes up at you. You're just like, whoa, what is that? It's just like a whole nother thing. It's something you've never seen before, something you never even dreamt of. Science wouldn't have been able to even, like, we got the skeletons of things that we can never fully visualize. I don't care if you could put the meat on it. You could be like, oh, well, maybe it had this type of bone structure. We see the bone structure. Maybe it had this big a muscle. We don't know. These things could have been 1,000% muscle. Gigantic trees everywhere, just a part of life. I don't know. I'm going on a rant here, but I'm just thinking, seeing things back in time, whether like from this fictionalized world, makes me think of seeing things back in time on our world and realizing it is so fantastical that it would feel like magic. Like, it would just seeing gigantic trees, bigger than any tree you've ever seen in your life, and just everywhere, you'd freak out.
In reality, these classes are defined almost arbitrarily, and often don't represent valid cladistic divisions. Of the osteopods that survive the extinction event, two of the most distinctive groups will be the Xenopsids and the Ramphidonts, which, since their Peliscian ancestors diverged from each other over 200 million years ago, have each inherited a unique assortment of distinguishing features. The ramphrodonts are characterized by their beak-like mandibles, enlarged anterior eyes with external dilating membranes, antennae-like pedipalps with tympanic hearing organs within their proximal segment, digitid forelimbs, endothermic metabolism, and altricial grub-like offspring, while the xenopsid signature traits include their serrated pedipalps with apical hearing organs, their binocular-like lateral eyes that bear sclerotic rings, coat of pectinate setae, internalized gonopods, and facultative endothermy. Both of these groups will be immediately distinguishable from all of the remaining Poliscians, while the few hibignathans that live on will form a peculiar outlier as a sister clade to all other osteopods. But now that the mass extinction has passed, these surviving clades will have the whole world to themselves, and with so little competition, they'll be free to establish an entirely new dynasty of life. We've mentioned before that when species find their way to uncolonized habitats like islands, they rapidly undergo an adaptive radiation to take advantage of all the empty niches. Mass extinctions have the effect of turning the entire planet into an uncolonized habitat, triggering an adaptive radiation.
I'm not gonna lie. Also, shout outs to that fact that the creatures that are left are gonna, be able to try to quickly adapt to it. But this photo, this image here, I don't know what type of artwork this is considered, but this is like literally art. This is like literal a piece of art. Like this feels like this should be hung up. Z person, shout outs to you, bro. Like I would love, I want to hang this up on my wall. I'm not gonna lie, this feels like something I want to actually hang up on my wall, and people will be like, "What is that?" Oh, that's, what do you think it is? And then they just look, and then just see their face ponder as they realize that this is a once beautiful land being taken over by lava and fire and death and destruction. And this is just, I don't know, it's just incredible. They almost look like the ghost of previous animals just going off, the spirits of all the other creatures just kind of flowing off. Watercolor, y'all think it's watercolor? It might be watercolor. I think this might be watercolor. This is incredible.
On a global scale. This concept is termed punctuated equilibrium, whereby long stretches of evolutionary stasis are interrupted by spurts of rapid diversification, usually as a response to sudden environmental disturbances like mass extinctions. Additionally, the reduction of competition means that species can afford to experiment with new designs and survival strategies, and as a result, the period immediately following the mass extinction is likely to produce some of the strangest clades in the planet's history, much like the explosion of bizarre groups that appeared during the—
What is, guys, what's this thing right here? Why does this look so familiar?
Triassic period following the Great Dying. The first stage of recovery will occur over several million years as plants and eroding mountains start to slowly absorb
Sam,
the excess carbon dioxide.
With you too, bro. Sam, bro, I feel like we haven't talked in a while, Sam. But I hope you're doing well.
And return the atmosphere to equilibrium. Once the climate stabilizes, the process of secondary succession can take place and new ecosystems can be established. The chemophytes will slowly begin regaining ground as the landscape once again becomes suitable for the growth of forests. However, whereas beforehand the xylophytes were the dominant clade of trees, the mass extinction will provide other plants with the opportunity to replace.
Anthrax, you gotta get ready for work? Well, you know what, bro? I hope you have a good day at work. I will keep the rest of this video as entertaining as I possibly can, so when you get back, you'll have a lot of things to look forward to listening to. You'll be able to leave off of this part and come back and be like, wow, it continued to be incredibly entertaining after that. Incredible. Amazing. Sam will message me. He's doing his own podcast channel next year. All the graphics and stuff have been done. Well, you know what, bro? As a person who's been on a podcast with you several times, and I mean so many times we've done podcasts. Ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't seen the Wrestle Dogs, make sure you check out Wrestle Dogs podcast. I was on there a lot a little bit ago. But yeah, all the graphics. Let me know. I'll definitely, I'll try to hop on and contribute if you want me to. Just reach out to me anytime, Sam. You know I'm there for you, buddy.
Place them. Many mass extinctions on Earth coincide with significant changes in vegetation, such as how the death of the lepidodendrales and the other lycopsids during the Carboniferous rainforest collapse led to the rise of the conifer forests, and the end Cretaceous extinction saw the flowering plants replace the gymnosperms as the dominant form of tree in tropical and temperate latitudes.
Oh wow.
Up until now, the zygophytes have remained relatively small ground plants, but as the trees around them vanish, they may be able to recover much faster than the xylophytes and evolve into a new form of tree, adapting their ramets into
What is this?
Plants.
What evolution?
But as the trees around them vanish, they may be able to...
Bro said, no, I can actually get big now. Hold on, I can get big now. Let's all get big together. He brought his friends with him. They're all getting big now. This is incredible.
To recover much faster than the xylophytes and evolve into a new form of tree, adapting their ramets into trunks and branches bearing colourful inflorescences composed of their hair-like gametangial filaments. The reef-like jungles that these colonial trees form will constitute an entirely new type of habitat, while the forests of xylophytes will only occur further towards the poles in colder and more arid regions.
Okay,
these
guys,
new
I have
trees,
to pause the
which
stream
will...
for just a moment, okay? Just give me 2 minutes here. All right. Thank you for your patience, ladies and gentlemen. Everything in life always happens at once. I don't know why, but that's just how it is. So remember that, ladies and gentlemen. Things tend to happen all at once.
Called zygodendrons, will provide innumerable niches for a myriad of arboreal species. As some of the few forest-dwelling animals to make it through the extinction, the surviving scandopods will begin to replace the extinct varieties of arboreal platodonts. Whereas the early scandopods' tiny size let them move along narrow branches, the new larger forms will need to adopt other methods of arboreal locomotion. In one group, the limbs will elongate to help reach between gaps, and their feet will develop flexible joints and hooked claws to let them grip to vertical surfaces, leading to a clade of scansorial
Oh wow.
and suspensorial
I
forms
like
that
these things. This is actually, hold on, this is actually really cool.
we'll call the fulcoscalids. Some fulcoscalids will be small fruit and seed
Oh my
eaters that dwell on
gosh.
the zygodendron.
Hold on now. Shout outs to K, man.
Some fulcoscalids
Because that artwork is amazing. I feel like I would have that on my wall. I love that. Shout outs to N as well. I like this too. I'm sorry, I just don't want to compare because they're both great. Art is incredible on its own. We don't need to compare it. But something about when I'm looking at this one here to the left, I really just enjoy this. It scratches that itch in my brain.
will be small fruit and seed eaters that dwell on the zygodendron's gametangial filaments, while others will be meter-long predators that snatch up smaller scandopods scuttling along the branches below them.
Ooh.
Meanwhile, a separate lineage will evolve in the opposite direction, developing longer, more gracile bodies to let them maintain balance on narrow footholds and to
This is so creepy. Oh my gosh.
Longer, more gracile bodies to let them maintain.
Something about it spinning around this and then coming back and doing something about that is so creepy to me. And I can already see why does that kind of look like a face right there. But I can imagine these evolving to have like some type of patterns that almost look like faces on them. And that makes it even creepier for me. Like imagine this, but it almost looks like it has a skull on the back or like eyes. Just anything where it looks like it's going to have eyes on its back, to make sure predators feel like it's always looking at them. That's going to make it so much creepier.
Balance on narrow footholds and to squeeze through dense vegetation, and short, strong legs to let them cling to the underside of branches. Both the fulcoscalids and this new clade, which we'll call the brachyscalids, will
Wait, this series has what I like to call bumpers. It's difficult to get into. It's difficult to keep going past episode 7, but it's a really fun time if you get over that. Hey, I understand. Me personally, just keeping up with a series in general is a little bit more difficult for me. Again, I have ADHD, I have a job, I have things I'm trying to maintain in life, and sometimes all those things just so happen to all be trying to fight each other for different spots in time. But even through all that, you know, just being able to maintain a series and the interest in the series between myself as well as the audience is difficult. This is one of the ones that's like, hey, so far I've enjoyed every episode I've done so far. I don't think there's been an episode where I was like, I wasn't really feeling that one. Maybe mindset wise, I wouldn't have been in the best mood to do all of them at certain times. But I don't think I've ever really had an issue with this series at all. Like, it's always been entertaining. I'm trying to remember what episode 7 was while I'm yapping. And I can't remember specifically what episode 7 was. I will say that. If you can remind me what episode 7 was about, because I'm trying to think. Was episode 7 the hardest one for me to get through? I know there was one that was going into some real deep science knowledge, like some real educational stuff, and I was kind of like, man, I feel like I don't have too much to add towards this, which I try to do in my own way, but I still feel like every episode gives at least the layperson an opportunity to, get something out to say about it or think about some aspects of, your everyday life with this. Uh, Episode 7 was Return to Water. Hold on. Return to Water was a pretty good one. They had a lot of like diversity and stuff come out of that one. Um, it may have been okay. I think the difference is episode 6 and everything when they were getting out of the water and going into the plant life or like the plants and then the animals. I think by episode 6 they were really so deep into like it was really starting to get good with the animal species on land, and then it was like, okay, now back to the sea, which was cool. But I think in comparison, as a land creature myself, I think talking about land creatures is pretty cool. Uh, Obviously some people enjoy the sea creatures as well. I do too, but I can see why some people would be like, episode 7, return to water. I could see it. Although it was still a really good episode. I feel like it was a really good one.
Present the vast majority of scandapod diversity in the new era, both radiating into thousands of new species. But at ground level, the Ramphidonts will undergo a diversification event of their own, modifying their ancestral design into a plethora of new forms. One curious adaptation that's occurred in several vertebrate clades is limblessness, the most obvious example being snakes, but also seen in other reptiles like the legless lizards and amphisbaenians, and even in amphibians like the caecilians. In virtually all of these groups, limblessness seems to have evolved as the result of a burrowing lifestyle. After all, fossoriality is associated with the reduction of any external structures that might get in the way while burrowing, including the limbs if they don't play a significant role in digging. The fossorial Ramphidonts are already born without any solidified bones in their limbs, making them of little use in walking, so the grub's primary means of locomotion will be writhing or squirming, wriggling their bodies from side to side. If this proves to be a more efficient way of moving through loose soil, then some species may undergo neoteny, never developing limb bones even in their adult form and ultimately losing any vestige.
Why does this look so much crazier than a snake or anything I imagined in my mind? I feel like this was gonna be like full on, maybe like it's the arms, guys. I didn't think the arms was gonna still be there. I really thought the arms were gonna disappear. This looks so much crazier with the arms on them. Like, imagine if snakes had arms. You'd be like, what the hell am I looking at? This is a snake with hands. This is like, I can't be the only one who's like, yo, snake with hands, that's weird. You think about that because I'm thinking about that because of the arms. I know they needed to burrow, but like, who would have expected the arms though? This
of
is
legs,
crazy.
Retaining only their front claws that still serve in digging and handling food. As most species will spend the majority of their lives underground, the large eyes and acute vision of their ancestors will diminish, some species losing one or more pairs of eyes and some even being completely blind. There will be many hundreds of species of these serpentine Ramphidonts, which we'll call apodomorphs, ranging in size from only a few centimeters to over a meter, found everywhere from the leaf litter of dense forests to the scorching sands of
Hold on, shout out to some of this artwork here. I like the
found
diversity
everywhere
of art. Bunko? Okay, this is very trippy. This is extremely trippy. It's like it's almost like they're trying to do it through the sight, like that vision, the heat vision sight. This is like also like if somebody did drugs and went into the forest, this might be what they see.
The leaf litter of dense forests to the scorching sands of subtropical deserts. While the apodomorphs and many other Ramphidonts will remain largely fossorial, the absence of any competition will coax many Ramphidonts out of their burrows to exploit ground-level niches.
Snake.
While all Ramphidonts have a light covering of setae, fossorial animals tend to have short or sparse fur to keep their bodies sleek, and larger animals can simply rely on gigantothermy for warmth. But the smaller species that move above ground may evolve a thicker coat of fur to make their thermoregulation more efficient. Additionally, the joints where their mouthparts attach to their skulls will evolve a unique structure that allows the independent movement of the left and right mandibles, a similar mechanism to the chelicerae of sun spiders. This will let them chew and process a wide variety of food sources, giving rise to an extremely successful radiation of generalists that we'll call the Dystrophiognathans. In one branch of Dystrophiognathans that remains small opportunists, their pedipalps will become long whip-like structures riddled with scent and taste receptors, with which they can probe through dirt, leaf litter, and other debris to pick out the tiniest scraps of food. The posterior portion of their abdomen will enlarge to house an expanded reproductive system, which, along with their tiny size and adaptable diet, will allow these generalists...
That looked absolutely insane.
The posterior portion of their abdomen will enlarge to house an expanded reproductive system, which, along with their...
Hey, this image right here, absolutely insane. If you walked in the forest and that was the first thing you saw, I think you'd immediately walk out, right? Like, we can all agree. Shout outs to Kiru. This would be insane to see. You're just walking down the street. You turn to your right. You're like, whoa, what is? Oh, a big, giant, like 8-legged creature, killing another. Like, okay, guess I will walk back into the house now. It looks like this. It's in real life. Yeah. Again, what were the centimeters on this guy? Didn't they say this guy was like over a meter? Like, a meter? That's almost as tall as a normal person. Like, what are we talking about? I'm not going nowhere near this thing. Like, this thing would be so crazy.
A tiny size and adaptable diet will allow these generalists, which we'll call flagelliferans, to spread into virtually every habitat.
Centimeters? Are these things centimeters or meters? I think this series is starting to finally educate me on the difference between centimeter. Okay, they were 15 centimeters. Never mind. You might smush them then if you saw them. But at the same time, still, crazy looking creature. Some people may freak out if they saw this. You saw this in real life, 15 centimeters or not, you might turn the other way. You know, you might be like, whoa, what the hell? What's going on today? I don't like this.
On the supercontinent and become some of the most prolific of all ramphidonts. In other dystrophiognathans that reach larger sizes, the huge claws of their fossorial ancestors will no longer be of any use in digging burrows, but one clade may instead use them to unearth subterranean food sources. From this lineage will come predators that break into the nests of...
My bad for cursing, guys, but what the hell?
Phoryctochirids,
That was still another curse word, but what's going on? That was actually a jump scare.
From this lineage will come predators that break into the nests of phoryctochirids, apodomorphs, and other fossorial prey, plucking them from their burrows with long serrated mandibles, as well as herbivorous species that dig up roots and plant tubers, and even forms that specialize for tearing open logs and tree trunks to expose malacoforms and other small prey beneath their cuticles. The broad spade-like claws that all of these forms share in common will earn them the name hadronychids. Another lineage of dystrophiognathans will evolve into small, adaptable predators and scavengers. These forms will develop pincer-like mandibles that terminate in narrow points to nip at and cut through soft meat, while also bearing ridged serrations to let them gnaw through tougher foods like bones, shells, and plant matter in times of scarcity. This clade, which we'll call dryptognathans, will fill the niches of mesocarnivores, scavengers, and small predators across much of the planet. As the dystrophiognathans proliferate, a separate branch of acrochirids will specialize for the roles of dedicated herbivores. One of the signature adaptations that distinguishes the acrochirids from other ramphidonts is their cecum that allows them to store and predigest food. While this first evolved as a way for them to process plant matter before regurgitating it for their grubs, it will also allow the herbivorous species to avert the contents of the cecum back into the foregut, in a similar way to how ruminants regurgitate and chew cud. In one lineage, the cecum will significantly expand, effectively becoming an extra chamber of the foregut where fermentation can occur prior to digestion. Again, however, it will take some time for the grubs of these species to develop such powerful, complex guts, making them less able to feed on vegetation than the adults. In some species, the juveniles will simply rely on their parents to provide them with regurgitated food that they can still digest, while in others this may result in ontogenetic niche shift, a phenomenon in which a species occupies different niches at different stages of its life cycle, which eliminates the risk of the juveniles being outcompeted by
Is it just me, or did frogs get used as quite a few examples in these? Shout outs to frogs, bro. Frogs are pretty dope, aren't they? Like, evolutionarily wise, like, frogs are kind of like really interesting creatures. Like, from an evolutionary standpoint, like, frogs have got to be like one of the more interesting creatures to just look at.
The adults. Therefore, while the adults will be more or less exclusively folivorous, The juveniles of most species will be much more generalist, feeding on fruit, seeds, or even subsisting on meat if need be. Another common adaptation among herbivores is for their jawbone to evolve an offset that allows the upper and lower teeth to all come into contact at once, improving their ability to grind down vegetation, which these forms may emulate by evolving a distinct right angle between the bones of their lower mandibles, allowing the flattened interior edges of the teeth to press together like a wrench, giving this line of acrochirids, which we'll call proseciforms, the most efficient plant-eating mechanism of any osteopod, and let them dominate the herbivorous niches in virtually every habitat. Some of these proseciforms will adapt for speed and cursoriality, not only evolving narrow ungular-grade feet and elongated flexible spines, but also undergoing another instance of centaur.
They're gonna be like horses now.
Becoming the first osteopod.
I love this guy. Shoutouts to Apple Tater.
Run on only their hind two pairs of legs, with both the first and second pairs held off the ground. This radical innovation will reduce the energy required for running.
Cows, zebras, if you're, who says zebras? That's British people. Shoutouts to British people, bro. Shoutouts to people in the UK. If you say zebras instead of zebras, very interesting.
Giving them some of the highest locomotive efficiency of any clade yet to evolve. Some will only exhibit facultative centaurism, still keeping 6 legs on the ground when resting, while in others the front legs will effectively serve as a second pair of feeding arms. These swift quadrupeds, which we'll call oligopods, will branch off from the other proseciforms early on in their history, and will range from meter-long, lightly built grazers that forage within the groves of zygodendrons to large browsers that use their freed-up front legs to pull down tree branches. A separate clade of proseciforms will sacrifice speed to become lumbering megafauna, evolving enormous.
What? Ladies and gentlemen, what is this?
Proseciforms.
When did this guy
will sacrifice speed to become lumbering megafauna?
This is like 15 years later when you're at your like high school reunion. You're like, oh, what happened to this guy? Bam, now he's that guy? What the hell?
Evolving enormous foreguts and multi-chambered stomachs, robust grinding mandibles to continuously harvest brachyphytes, and powerful muscles in their back anchored to bony crests to support their massive cephalothorax. As they don't need to be selective in their feeding, the antennae on their pedipalps will become reduced to nearly vestigial structures so as to not get in the way of the rake-like forelimbs that continuously sweep through the brachyphytes and pass food into the mouth. These gigantic beasts, which we'll call megantroforms, will be the largest grazing herbivores since the titanopods.
Okay.
In the scramble to fill all the empty niches after the mass extinction, some acrochirids may even be able to move into arboreal niches. In making this transition, one clade will not only develop long, flexible limbs for climbing and maneuvering through the tangled canopy of the zygodendron forests, but also a special foot structure with wide pads to give them strong purchase on precarious footholds and to adhere to near-vertical surfaces, as well as a tail-like dorsiventrally flattened posterior abdomen, which, along with the gonopods, will form a partially prehensile appendage to assist in maintaining balance and clinging to branches. These adaptable creatures, which we'll call hylotheres, will form a sister clade to the Dystrophiognathans and proseciforms.
Shout out to the hydroclearers. These things look like wolves in the on the branches. They look like they're a wolf on branch. That's actually very scary.
And will serve as the precursors of another major radiation of acrochirids, one that will comprise thousands of species and be found in forests all across the supercontinent. As they diversify, different clades of hylotheres will adapt to cope with the numerous food sources available in the canopy. Many of the smaller hylotheres will have narrow tweezer-like mouthparts to probe for seeds, nectar, and malacoforms within the zygodendron's carpet of gametangial filaments, while larger species will adapt to feed on fruit, foliage, and other plant tissues. One group will even adapt for xylophagy, or wood-eating, a very rare feeding behavior among large animals, as wood is extremely nutrient-poor and difficult to digest. But in evolution, the pressure to avoid competition will always ensure that no niche goes unfilled. Therefore, the zygodendron forests will see the evolution of a clade of xylophagous hylotheres with vertically opposed chisel-like mandibles to gnaw through wood and other tough vegetation, and complex guts filled with symbiotic microbes to help them extract as much nutrition from their food as possible. Their low-energy diet will make them slow and deliberate climbers, but they'll still find safety within the nests and burrows they chew into the dense labyrinth of branches as they feed. We'll call this clade the Pelicodonts. But although the Hylotheres will be ancestrally arboreal, over millions of years, as the distribution of forest changes and new habitats open up, the opportunity may eventually come for some clades to return to the ground. One group that makes this transition will evolve to walk on the knuckles of their front legs, helping to prevent
you had that in you the whole time? You went from 20 centimeters
will evolve to walk on
to 6 meters. How? What's the evolutionary time scale on this? How many thousands of years
to return to the ground
from this guy?
One group that makes this transition will evolve to walk
to 6 meters tall. What happened there? What did you run it? What did you do that summer, buddy? Like, what was evolution doing to you that day? Evolution hit you with the Thor hammer. Was like, bam, no, you're not 20 centimeters. You're actually a 6 meter giant, buddy. You're actually, no, evolution does go crazy. Evolution said, no, buddy, this isn't you. This isn't who I see in you. Evolution said, I see the true potential in you. You're small now, but come back to me. 6 meters in the sky.
Walk on the knuckles of their front legs, helping to prevent their hooked claws from wearing down so they can assist the forelimbs in reaching for food. Though the early members of this clade will be mid-sized forest dwellers that pluck fruit from low branches, some may move out into more open habitats where, without the constraints of dense vegetation, they'll be free to grow into huge megafaunal browsers, the largest of which will rival even the megantroforms in size.
Hold on now, what is this image I'm looking at, guys? Can we acknowledge that this image looks absolutely insane? Like right now? Can we all come to an agreement that this image looks like these guys are humping? Like, that looks absolutely insane. I don't know what evolution's trying to do in this photo right here. But things are going wild, ladies and gentlemen. This is a crazy, I don't know. Maybe it's just me. I might not be mature enough.
We'll call Thaumatotheres eyes. These are the larger vegetation which will rival even the megantroforms in size. These hulking creatures, which we'll call Thaumatotheres, will comb the periphery of thick jungles and gallery forests, gorging on vegetation far out of reach of any other herbivore. With the return of megafaunal herbivores, it won't be long before predatory clades evolve to hunt them. The Xenopsids have a head start over the Ramphidonts in filling the niches of predators, as they already had a number of predatory adaptations before the extinction. In particular, the Stenopsids' mouthparts, where the mandibles are concealed within a lip-like sheath and the pedipalps positioned further forward to more easily close over prey, enables them to make more precise and powerful bites than other Xenopsids, making them somewhat pre-adapted for the niches of specialist predators. Soon after the mass extinction, one group of Stenopsids will evolve to incorporate their forearms into their feeding structure, turning them into raptorial weaponry to latch onto prey and pull it within reach of the dagger-like pedipalps. From this clade, which we'll call the Peleropsids, will come a variety of predatory groups, including fast step-dwelling pursuit hunters, agile semi-arboreal forms, and more heavily built ambush hunters. But one group in particular will develop the size and weaponry to become the first group of megafaunal hypercarnivores since the mass extinction. Size and weapon-built ambush hunters.
Evolution.
But one group in particular will develop the size and weapon.
Bonk, you're now 2.8 meters
to become the first group of megafaunal hypercarnivores since the mass extinction.
You're incredible now.
In these species, the raptorial forelimbs will become more robust and compact to allow them to restrain large prey like the oligopod.
What in the anime scene is happening right here, guys? Do you see the anime scene that's happening right now? Look at this. Look at this. He did a backspin, chopped off his, this guy's freaking arm right here. I don't even know what's happening. This is incredible. He's missing an arm. He got his arm snatched up. He comes back, whap, hits this guy. I kind of want to see this in full animation
and
now. This is incredible.
thaumatotheres. As is befitting their status as some of the largest predators of the new era, we'll call these macropredators anaxotheres. The return of the predators will put pressure on their prey to evolve ways of defending themselves. Animals like the megantroforms and thaumatotheres can rely on their size alone for defense, but smaller animals like the diplostomes will resort to more innovative tactics. In one group of desmostricans, the excretory glands on their flanks will evolve to produce toxins, but instead of injecting venom through stingers like the pronacanthids, they'll instead adapt these glands into nozzles that fire the toxins in a chemical spray. This form of projectile weaponry is fairly rare, but can be seen in animals like bombardier beetles, velvet worms, and whip scorpions. In many species, the spray will consist of a noxious, foul-smelling liquid that repels potential attackers, while other species will produce strands of sticky, web-like slime that can entangle and entrap malacoforms and other small prey. To complement this weaponry, they'll also evolve aposematic coloration to make sure that predators know to avoid them. Due to their distinctive defenses, we'll call them mixobolids. Not all the xenopsids will be predators. Just as with the ramphidonts, the xenopsids will undergo an explosion of diversity and fill a wide variety of niches. In one group, the second claw on their forelimbs will elongate into a forward-angled spur against which the terminal claw can close, turning the distal portion of the limb into a structure similar to the chelae of many arthropods. These chelae will give them a much more precise means of manipulation, letting them selectively pluck up seeds, malacoforms, or other small morsels of food. We'll give this lineage the fitting name calaferans.
They look like bees.
Although most calaferans will be small opportunists with narrow pointed chelae, one clade will adapt for handling larger items like fruit, eggs, and even small prey like diplostomes, and so their chelae will evolve into robust crushing claws to let them break apart their food before passing it into the mouth. These strengthened chelae will also serve as formidable weapons to fend off predators and compete with rivals for access to mates. These tenacious generalists, which we'll call pachycalaferans, will include some of the largest calaferans, found everywhere from zygodendron forests to arid steppe and scrubland, traveling in family groups in search of anything edible. The calaferans' chelae will help them become some of the most successful xenopsids, but one group of stenopsids will see an equally bizarre anatomical development.
What?
The bones at the base of the skull will develop tusk-like extensions that jut forward to form a larger surface for the pedipalps to grip against, similar to the head ornamentation of the extinct hell ants on Earth. These structures, which we'll coin the term exognaths to describe, will allow them to more easily bite down onto and grip food items, and from the forerunners of this new clade, which we'll call the ceratodonts, will arise a myriad of groups that each adapt these exognaths to suit different purposes. One clade may evolve to chase down small, fast-moving prey, using their exognaths to assist in snatching up and restraining their quarry. These forms will adapt for speed and maneuverability, evolving not only long, gracile bodies and powerful running legs, but also undergoing yet another instance of centaurism, the forelimbs tucking under the body to not get in the way when...
Hey, shoutouts to SYFYFW. This is incredible.
...running, making these predators, which we'll call elaphrodonts, some of the fastest and most agile of all xenopsids. One clade of elaphrodonts will adapt their pedipalps and exognaths into pointed scissor-like structures, specialized not for grabbing but for impaling and skewering prey, and for delivering snapping bites to slice open lethal wounds. With this vicious armament, snapping bite for grabbing but for impaling and skewering prey, and for delivering snapping bites to slice open lethal wounds. With this vicious armament, this clade...
That was like his ult move, guys. If you played like Rivals or anything, that was like that.
Which we'll call the spathodonts, will become very diverse and successful predators, ranging from half-meter long forest dwellers with long, supple bodies to maneuver through complex terrain.
Centaurism. Everybody want to be a horse now. Everybody want to do some horse stuff now. We all horsing around this episode apparently.
In an explosive pursuit of
you guys get it? It was a horse joke. Horsing around. something I do around these parts. Provide comedy, light entertainment there, guys. Just something that I bring to the table. This is why you like in comments all the fun stuff. Go ahead.
Prey to 3-meter-long ambush predators that erupt from the undergrowth to dispatch their targets in a series of lightning-fast jabs. While the spathodonts will typically hunt relatively small prey, another line of elaphrodonts may make use of their speed, agility, and weaponry to go after megafaunal prey. In these larger forms, the exognaths will grow upward into knife-like points that interlock with the pedipalps in such a way that both are continuously sharpened as they shear against each other, like the carnassial teeth of many mammalian predators. As they adapt for hunting large prey like the oligopods, megantroforms, and thaumatotheres, they'll be brought into competition with the anaxotheres, which by this point will already be well-established macropredators. However, the speed and locomotive efficiency provided by their centaurism will let them compete effectively for the niches of pursuit hunters, while the anaxotheres will primarily rely on ambush tactics. We'll call these new hypercarnivores the Xerodonts, but not all ceratodonts will specialize for predation. The increased
I like how they got blade teeth and razor
ability
teeth.
to exert downward force provided by
the teeth are very sharp, ladies and gentlemen. Just know that.
Exognaths will let them deal with food items too tough for most other animals, prompting some species to specialize for durophagy. In one group, the pedipalps will become more robust and heavily muscled, with huge rounded teeth to compress down against the exognaths like a vice, which scavenging species may use to crack
Holy crap, this looks crazy. Hold on. I love the coloring.
Open the bones of carcasses, while herbivorous forms may use them to crunch through tough woody plant tissues. We'll call them cophodonts. In yet other ceratodonts, the exognaths may serve as multi-purpose tools for manipulation, display, or defense. In one predominantly herbivorous group, the exognaths will become horn or antler-like structures to help them dig through the topsoil in search of roots, tubers, and other plant matter. These horns are also likely to be co-opted into weapons and ornamentation in fighting for and attracting mates, even to the point of undergoing fishery and runaway in some species, with males bearing horns so large and unwieldy that they encumber their movement and their ability to feed. Although some ceratodonts such as these...
Bro, imagine you one of these things and your horns grow so crazy, you can't even feed properly. Like, you can't even eat for real because your horns are getting in the way.
Which we'll call aratrodonts, will develop herbivorous tendencies. It will be a separate branch of xenopsids that comes to fill the niches of large herbivores. While large ramphidonts like the megantroforms and thaumatotheres will come to fill most of the niches of megafaunal herbivores, the xenopsids' coat of pectinate setae lets them more easily adapt to colder climates than the ramphidonts, so one group of xenopsids may manage to fill the roles of large browsers in the seasonal forests and tundra towards the south of the supercontinent. As some of the relatively few fully herbivorous xenopsids, their enlarged lateral eyes, which in most xenopsids face forward to grant them binocular vision, may instead angle sideways to give them a full view of their surroundings to look out for danger, giving them a distinct hammerhead condition.
Oh wow.
From this lineage, which we'll call the teleopsids, will come large folivores that wander through the xylophyte and notophyte forests, as well as stocky, tundra-dwelling grazers and smaller forms that dwell atop mountain crags or rocky plateaus. But as all these various groups recolonize the land, there will also be plenty of empty niches in freshwater and marine habitats, which will incentivize some groups to develop semi-aquatic lifestyles, just as how many secondarily aquatic groups on Earth first evolved shortly after mass extinctions. One group of basal xenopsids will begin the transition to aquatic life by wading into the shallows of rivers and lakes to hunt acanthopods. In so doing, the claws on their forelimbs will adapt into a line of needle-like points, reminiscent of the teeth of many piscivores on Earth, an ideal shape for grabbing onto slippery aquatic prey. Their spiracles will move onto their back to let them breathe while the majority of their body is submerged. The dense covering of pectinate fur common to all xenopsids will create excess drag when swimming, so many species will become hairless, as many aquatic mammals have done on Earth. These xenopsids, which we'll call anchistrabrachids, will be commonly found along riverbanks and lakesides, standing motionless with their forelimbs splayed out and snatching up any acanthopod that comes within reach. Some of the ramphidonts will also have semi-aquatic representatives. In the river basins of the tropical forests, one clade of Hylotheres may evolve to traverse the flooded waterways by adapting the pads on their feet into broad flippers. However, the developmental changes that the ramphidont's grubs undergo as they mature may influence how they make the transition to semi-aquatic life. In some species, the juveniles will be exclusively terrestrial, gradually becoming more adapted for swimming as they age, whereas other species will live in the water from birth. In the latter species, the grubs won't develop the leg bones necessary for limb-driven swimming until relatively late in their development, so the juveniles will mostly use body-driven swimming, propelling themselves with vertical undulations of their elongated body and leaf-shaped tail fluke, while the adults will swim using their 6 flipper-like legs, keeping their clawed forelimbs folded up against the body to minimize drag. These ramphidonts, which we'll call Gyrinnotheres, will fill niches ranging from omnivorous generalists to small acanthivores to large predators that ambush terrestrial prey. There will also be an abundance of niches to be filled in the oceans. By this point, the tachypods and acanthopods will have begun to regain their former diversity and refill the empty seas.
I thought the spearfeet died. The longfins survived too? I swear it was only these two that survived.
With so many pelagic niches vacant, the remipterids that were once restricted to the reefs and shallows will have the chance to spread into open waters. Most remipterids have 7 pairs of fins that are more or less equal in size and shape that they flap in a rippling motion along the length of their bodies, a subcategory of median paired fin swimming called rajiform locomotion, which provides decent maneuverability but is only efficient at slow speeds, and is therefore most effective for benthic or reef-dwelling species. But one pelagic clade may instead evolve to beat all their fins together, merging them into a single pointed wing-like surface, evolving what's called mobuliform locomotion, which is more efficient at high speeds and over long distances. This will allow these remipterids, which we'll call synopterids, to move into deeper waters and fill niches that were only occupied by body-driven swimmers before the mass extinction, feeding on plankton and smaller acanthopods in the open ocean. Meanwhile, some of the dorypods will evolve to replace the temnopods and other large predators. The dorypods' harpoon-like mouthparts evolved as a mechanism for spearing small prey without creating turbulence, but they can also be fired into the bodies of larger prey to inflict lethal damage, resulting in the evolution of a clade of powerful macropredators with torpedo-shaped bodies and thunniform swimming for
centimeters to 3.5 meters, actually insane.
Speed and acceleration, a group that we'll call the xiphopods. But before these and many other acanthopod groups can achieve total dominion of the oceans, there'll be a window of opportunity for terrestrial clades to enter the sea and compete for pelagic niches. From the same ancestors as the Hylotheres will come a clade of acrochirids which, like many of the Gyrinnotheres, will produce grubs that are adapted for aquatic life from the moment they're born, which will rid the adults of the need to return to the land to give birth, letting them lose any capacity for terrestrial locomotion and turn their limbs into powerful flippers. The majority of thrust will be generated from the front and middle pairs of flippers, while the hind flippers will be used for steering, and the dorsal and tail fins will resist rotational forces and keep the body stable. Their forelimbs will move forward and partially merge with the mouthparts to form a single streamlined feeding arrangement, their claws lined with rasping protuberances to latch onto fast, slippery prey. From these creatures will come the most successful radiation of marine ramphidonts, one that we'll call the Thrinaxorhynchids. Most Thrinaxorhynchids will be fast predators that chase down acanthopods and other nekton, but some will move into the niches of filter feeders, adapting the claws on their forelimbs into comb-like structures that spread open to engulf enormous quantities of plankton-filled water, while the spade-shaped mandibles press down to force water out of the oral cavity and
This looks so much crazier than a normal whale. It's
strain out the plankton before pushing it into the throat. With the buoyancy of the water to support their bulk and the profusion of food in the surface waters, these creatures, which we'll call Dictyorhynchids, will become the biggest animals on the planet.
Guys, we're not going to make fun of the name Dictyorhynchids, you know. It is a little hilarious, though. We do have to acknowledge that.
The largest species exceeding 30 meters in length. But as life in the oceans and on the supercontinent
because then somebody could just be like, oh, it's a big, the nickname for this thing has got to be a dick, It's like, oh, it was a big dick coming at you. Like, whoa.
There'll be many isolated and outlying areas that will follow a completely independent path to recovery. In particular, the island continent of Septentria will have remained in allopatric isolation from the supercontinent since before the mass extinction, and since it separated from the eastern continent before the interchange, the Xenopsids and the Ramphidonts, both having evolved on the western continent, will have never had the chance to colonize Septentria, so as its biota recovers, the Septentrian ecosystems will come to be completely unlike those anywhere else on the planet. The Hybignathans will be some of Septentria's signature oddities, the Siniskian condition of fused limb girdles being utterly unlike any other living osteopod. But those few species that survive the mass extinction won't be sufficient to re-establish their former diversity and achieve dominance of the Septentrian ecosystems. Instead, other, more diverse groups will come from afar to claim the terrestrial niches for themselves. As always, the organisms with the best chance of making it to island habitats are flying animals, and as the only two clades to have evolved flight, the surviving Opisthophterans and Pleuropterans will furiously compete to regain control of the aerial niches after the extinction, rapidly radiating into thousands of new species to fill the skies. The Opisthophterans won't be able to grow as large as the Platypterans, but they'll still proliferate into innumerable clades of nectarovores, small predators, and scavengers, while from the Platypterans will evolve small frugivores, swift predators, and gigantic long-ranging species with wingspans of over 6 meters. And as part of this diversification, some members of both groups may end up losing their flight altogether. In Part 11, we discussed how flying animals tend to become flightless if they find themselves in an environment where there are no predators, as the high energetic demands of flight are no longer justifiable or necessary to maintain. This most commonly occurs when flying animals find their way to islands or other isolated habitats, but in the wake of a mass extinction, predators will become significantly rarer across the whole planet, providing the opportunity for mainland species to become flightless as well. Shortly after the end Cretaceous extinction, flightlessness independently evolved at least 6 times among various groups of ratites, as well as in other birds like the Dromornithids and the terror birds. Septentria will be an ideal place for flightlessness to evolve, as it will be devoid of the Xenopsids and Ramphidonts that come to dominate the mainland, giving flying species the opportunity to move into the vacant niches. The Septentrian Pipiodonts may give rise to one such flightless group, becoming small forest-dwelling omnivores.
Okay.
Even without flight, their elastic gladius will let them jump
so we
many
kept the marker, the 20 centimeters now, 25 centimeters now. Let's see what evolution does to these guys.
Even without flight, their elastic gladius will let them jump many times their body length if they need to escape danger, and will give them a distinctive hopping or bounding gait as they move along the forest floor. Like many of the Pipiodonts of the new era, they'll live in social groups that keep in constant communication with each other. Along with the calls they produce with their stridulating teeth, many species may adapt their vestigial wings into frill-like display structures, used in attracting mates, intimidating rivals, and staying in contact with the rest of the group while foraging. However, flightlessness will only be a beneficial adaptation during the brief window of time in which the ground niches are largely vacant, and by the time that predators...
Can we give a... Oh wow, great timing. Can we give a special shout out to Popo? These are always incredible, I love these.
And competitors return, it will be too late to re-evolve flight, so many flightless groups end up going extinct soon after they first appear. But these flightless Pipiodonts, which we'll call Pterolophids, may be lucky enough to survive within the relative safety of the Septentrian forests. A similar transition is likely to occur in at least one clade of Septentrian Platypterans, the second and third pair of limbs that form the wing shrinking into a vestigial membrane between the front and back legs, making them resemble the now extinct Chlamypterans of Pyronesia. But while the Chlamypterans were constrained in their size by the limited resources of the tiny Pyrenesian islands, Septentria will provide enough food and space to accommodate much larger animals, allowing these flightless Platypterans, which we'll call Dermatopods, to become some of the first megafauna to inhabit Septentria after the mass extinction. As mentioned in Part 11, giving up flight allows a species to adopt less efficient feeding behaviors like folivory, so one clade of dermatopods may evolve into large herbivores with long stilt-like legs and an extended cephalothorax to reach upward to comb through the trees. This group, which we'll call rhabdopods, will be Septentria's dominant megafaunal herbivores, and include both relatively small and gracile forest dwellers as well as bigger, more robust forms that feed on stands of trees and open habitats. And with the evolution of large terrestrial prey will come a variety of predatory dermatopods that specialize in hunting them. One group will develop sickle-like claws on their front limbs to slash at their prey and wrestle it to the ground, and flexible limbs and backs that grant them the speed and agility to chase down their targets.
Okay, brother.
Most species will hunt small prey like the pterolophids and the smaller dermatopods, but a few species will be big enough to occasionally go after prey as large as the rhabdopods.
I'm the predator.
This clade, which we'll dub compsopods, will be the most successful predators to evolve on Septentria since the mass extinction. But although the dermatopods will be the first major group to repopulate Septentria's terrestrial ecosystems, it's only a matter of time before some unexpected competitors make themselves known. While Septentria and the supercontinent exist in allopatry, they're only separated by a narrow stretch of seaway less than 1,000 kilometers wide, which is more than close enough to allow species to raft from one landmass to the other.
Yeah.
Not long after the extinction event, the mainland will see the evolution of a clade of rhamphodonts that adapts for life above ground, with sharp claws on their feet to help them climb and scamper over rough terrain, and a pair of crest-like prominences on their mandibles, used both for display and to assist the forelimbs in unearthing prey from the leaf litter, for which we'll give them the name coryphodonts. While most mainland species will remain fairly inconspicuous, at some point a few lucky individuals of one species will be washed out to sea on a mat of driftwood and arrive on the Septentrian shores. By this time the dermatopods will already occupy many of the Septentrian niches, but recall that land area is the greatest predictor of which biota will have the competitive advantage, so the coryphodonts, having evolved in the complex and highly competitive ecosystems of the supercontinent, will still be able to gain a foothold in the Septentrian ecosystems. As they diversify, one line of Septentrian coryphodonts will move into the steppe and other open areas, where they'll be a lot more exposed to danger, so many species will invest in some form of defense. One clade will evolve splint-like plates of dermal armor along their back and cephalothorax, and many species may also evolve horns and spines to deter predators. Though many of these coryphodonts
spikes and armor, what a combo,
may remain fairly small, the protection provided by their armor will give them the edge they need to evolve into heavy-set megafauna, serving as Septentria's dominant clade of grazers to evolve into heavy...
Why does he actually look, why does this guy up here look actually angry? Is it just me, or does it look like he's frowning at this guy like, I want to eat you so bad, but you're all spiky and I just can't get through your armor. And he just looks super chill like, yeah, I know this guy wants to eat me, but you know, I'm super spiked up and armored up. What can he really do? I think I'm just going to keep grazing along. And this guy's just like, are you really just about to graze in front of me, bro? Look how big and intimidating I am. Be afraid of me.
Heavy-set megafauna, serving as Septentria's dominant clade of grazers while the rhabdopods browse on the treetops. Alongside these armored forms, which we'll call fractiforms, a separate branch of Septentrian coryphodonts may instead evade predators by clambering into the safety of the trees and hiding among dense vegetation. To ensure their claws stay sharp enough to be effective in climbing, their feet will evolve special joints and tendons that allow the claws to be retracted to stop them from wearing down when the animal visits ground level, an adaptation seen in many semi-arboreal animals on Earth, and one for which we'll call them cryptonichids. One line of cryptonichids will specialize for herbivory, gorging on the bounty of fruits, seeds, and leaves in the canopy, to the point that some species will eventually become too large to have their weight supported by tree branches. Although their claws will no longer be of any use in climbing, retracting them when not in use will still stop them from wearing down so they can remain long enough to be effective in hooking down vegetation. Though the rhabdopods will still be the dominant browsing herbivores across most of Septentria, these cryptonichids, which we'll call theristobrachids, will still be fairly widespread in forested regions, their feeding claws doubling as a means of defense. Some cryptonichids may even evolve venom as a defensive measure. Since, by definition, venom needs to reach the bloodstream to take effect, venom glands very often evolve from salivary or other digestive glands within the mouth, so that the venom can be transferred when the animal bites the target and the teeth penetrate the skin. But there are more exotic possibilities, such as the venomous spurs on the hind legs of male platypuses, or the brachial glands on the upper arms of slow lorises that produce a venomous secretion that they then lick to mix with their saliva. In the case of these cryptonichids, some of the scent glands on their forefeet may evolve to produce toxins that pass into the blood through the wounds inflicted by the claws. In time, these glands may become integrated into the claws, which will evolve grooves or hollow ducts to allow the venom to be delivered into the target. When the muscles in the foot contract to extend the claws, they'll simultaneously compress the gland to inject the venom, a similar mechanism to the fangs of selenoglyphous snakes. As the early members of this clade will mainly use their venom for defense, many species may develop aposematic coloration to advertise their dangerousness to predators, some species turning the prominences on their mandibles.
Guys, is this not like one of the scariest images you'll see? Is this not like a freaking frightening image for some reason? This is incredible. How is he gonna bite you from the like this or like the, you know? How is he?
To colorful crests. We'll call this clade the glyphonichids. But as they diversify, some glyphonichids may also use their venom to take down large prey, letting them compete with the compsopods for the niches of Septentria's dominant predators. In one group, the forelimbs will undergo centaurism so that their fang-like claws will be better positioned for seizing prey and injecting the venom. As they get larger, they can rely more on size and strength to take down prey, so their venom will likely be less potent than the smaller forms, even being completely absent in some species. Without any xenopsids on Septentria, these large glyphonichids, which we'll call archonichids, will fill similar niches to those occupied by the anaxotheres and xerodonts on the mainland, becoming some of the largest of all predatory ramphidonts. And so dawns a new golden age for life on this planet. If we wanted to, we could keep on fleshing out the history of the biosphere period after period until the planet is rendered uninhabitable by the expansion of its sun. But for our purposes, this is as good a place as any to leave things off, and to declare this particular time period as the present day. And now that we've finally reached this point, it's about time we gave this planet a name. In keeping with standard astronomical naming conventions, let's give it the official designation of adapting the claws on their forelimbs into comb-like structures we discussed species. These glands may become integrated into the claws, which will evolve grooves or hollow ducts to allow the venom to be delivered. Let's give it the official designation of Tira 292b.
Not gonna lie, a little, Tira 292b, little, it doesn't really fit as well as something I would expect, like maybe just Tira. I think Tira may have been a good one.
Along with a menagerie of forms that appears after the mass extinction, the new era will see the emergence of one particular adaptation.
What?
One with the potential to shape the future of the entire biosphere.
What is that?
Next time, in the final episode, we discuss the evolution of sapient life.
Hold on now. What? Hold on. Did nobody tell me about this? I've been saying from the beginning. Why has nobody told me about this? I have been saying this from the beginning about creatures, humanoid, something like us. Why has nobody told me about this? I've been saying this from the beginning. What is happening? You guys never tell me about the stuff that I wanted. You guys always keeping it a surprise. I appreciate it. You know what? I'm actually appreciative of that. You didn't want to give me spoilers. I appreciate that. But I've been saying it, and people have been telling me in the comments, like, oh, what are you talking about? Oh, what are you talking about? Oh, it's not human. Okay. When these things come out when these things look like it could be me, when one of them comes out with a freaking, oh, this could be a human or something, I'm gonna be like, yo, what's going on? It's not human shaped? Okay. It better not be human shaped. If this is human shaped, I will be coming back next week very upset at you guys, okay? Don't let it be human shaped next week. It's gonna be crazy. Don't spoil the roast. I gotcha. Let's finish this out with all the artists. You know how much I love these guys. Let's finish it out with them.
Thanks to all the artists on Discord who contributed artwork
Agent
for this episode.
If
you didn't notice, this episode in particular was especially gigantic, and without their help,
Noodle,
this video would have taken at least another 6 months to make. So a huge thanks to all of you for your contribution to this project.
Ben the Brittle Star,
Links to the main server and the tier server in the description.
Bloody Bit
and once again, a massive thanks to all the patrons who've exercised an enormous amount of patience in waiting for this episode, and whose continued support makes absurdly long videos like this possible. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the final episode.
Shout outs to you, Dark Elf 06, Dark Zone, Delforter, Dino Master, Dixie Joe, DL Dragon, Dum Dum, N. Shout outs to N, okay, Extinction. Shout out to Fish, also Fish. Okay, Gaps. Shout outs to Gaps, Greeniverse, Greg. Okay, Herb Bain, Hinsk. Okay, Holy something. I awful. Jay Boyley, J Draw, Jonas, Jungles 12, Juno. Shout outs to Kanan. I remember you, Kanan. Kiro, Kyryu, Josh. Shout outs to Kaepernick or Kiwi the Cartographer as well. Kursko, Leaf Bill Species, Lemon. Also Lily, Loser God, Max the Mick. Monica, Moon Gator. All right, Mr. Sam. A lot of people. Nim, Noob Star, GB. I don't know how you pronounce Guba, Opal, Osiris, Stimulant, Auto. Shout out to Auto, Elkanan, Ovelas, Profacial, Pepper. Shout out to Pepper. Pamilion. Prehistoric Kid. Yeah, Prehistoric Kid. Pumpkin. Okwala. Randall. RAV. Ray. Shout out to Ray. Rape. Sam. Shout out to another Sam. Sad. Sarum. Okay. Sash Potato. Shrink. Shout out to Shrink. Shout out to Sink. Shout out to Sir. Sleepy. Shout out to Sleepy. Special. Okay. Spirit. Okay. Starlight, Stephanie, SYFW, in a bunch of numbers, Talon, the Rat King, shout out to the Rat King, Tomorrow, the Epi Mage, TY, the Vivid Sky, Wave Modder, Rink, shout out to Rink, Red Whale, Z Person, Zeroy. Yeah, guys. Whoa, let's not do that yet. That was another incredible one, guys. I think we had a fun time. All the artists are great. I love the fact that they go so fast that I was struggling to keep up with the names. And you know what, guys? I think that's one of the funnier parts of the bit. So, ladies and gentlemen, I do have to get going. I think this was a fun stream, though. We learned some stuff. What did we learn today, guys? What is the most important thing you guys think we learned today? For me personally, I think I learned that we need to save the environment. Am I wrong? Like, we gotta save the actual environment of Earth. Like, a lot of that apocalypse stuff was cool about the animals and, them readapting and coming back to being like cool again. But can we talk about how like a lot of the stuff that's happening on Earth is gonna be affecting us as humans for a moment? Like, and then we can get back to the whole like having fun and laughing and joking about stuff. But like for a moment, can we take away the important part of this series, which was some of the things that are happening there are happening to us. We can be trying to stop it. We should be doing more. If you have any type of responsibility out there, use it. I mean, if you got any type of power, use it. I don't know anybody in control. I don't know. But I do know this. I know that we can, like, I have a voice, at least. I know I have a voice, okay? And I can use that voice to at least say on this channel, let's do something to help the environment, ladies and gentlemen. Let us try to do something to help this environment. We are one species on this planet, and we have also, we've done a lot of bad stuff to it, okay? But we can also probably, I think we can do the most good to this planet as a species if we as humans actively work on saving this planet. We're probably the only class or clan that can get that done on this planet for real. That is a major responsibility. We should take this opportunity, use it. Spread this message. If you don't hear any of the parts of this video, guys, if you don't share any of the parts of the video, share this one part. If you have any power to help where we're going in on our planet, like what we're doing to our planet, if you have any type of responsibility in that or any type of power to stop what's happening, let's use that, please, at any level. My level right now is presenting it right now. I learned the information. I am spreading the message on YouTube. I would try to incorporate that into more videos whenever I see it's relevant, but we have to do something because we literally only get one planet, guys. We get one shot at this, and this isn't a game. This is actual real life. We should do something about this, if not for us, for our children. So yeah, that's my rant. I will go hug a tree later today. But yeah, I got some stuff to get done, ladies and gentlemen. I do want to say thank you if you made it this far into the video. As always, thank you. I love you guys. You are the best, and I'll ever forget that.